Hi everyone, welcome to our second technical workshop in the AI Blueprint Hackathon. Today we're going to start out with the Akave workshop, which is on how to use Akave's developer tools. So thank you everyone for joining us live today. I'm inviting our speaker Bart to the stage now and he'll take over from here. But while we're here, it'd be great if you have any questions, could you please put them in the questions tab, and we'll get to them at the end of Bart's session. But otherwise, I will hand straight over because I'm sure you're all here and ready to learn.
So yeah, thanks for everybody for joining the workshop on Akave. I'm Bart Hofkin. I'm a solutions engineer there. And we're going to be talking today about what Akave is, some of the benefits and features that you get from it. I'll describe the data flow and security frameworks at a high level. I'll go through the challenge statements one by one to provide a little bit more detail there, as well as some basic examples of what you might want to build. I'll also do a little live demo so you can see how some of these tools work and share some resources at the end. So to get started, Akave is the fastest way to store and retrieve data on Filecoin. We're a hot retrieval layer. So we do high performance hot storage, which is really well suited for things like AI and DeepIn. And we also build tools to make it great for enterprises to use, such as our SDKs, which we have in multiple languages. I'll talk more about those later. We also have a CLI, API, and we're coming out with an S3 endpoint, which is fully S3 compatible. And you can actually get early access to that. I'll share how to do that too. Although I would recommend building with some of our existing tools like the SDKs that I'll go into more detail here, since that S3 API is still very much in the testing phase. For the other benefits that you get from Akave, we make sure that it's really scalable, cost efficient, and secure. There'll be more detail in the security framework on how that is. And we also want to make it easy to use for developers. So if you do go through the docs, if you're going through any of the things in here, feel free to tag us. Both me and Abe will be in the Discord to answer any questions you might have. And we're very much open to feedback. We are in the testnet phase. So we have the Explorer and the Faucet, some of the other tools that I'll be sharing. If there's anything you see that could be improved, please let us know. So Akave at a high level, we are combining the best of blockchain and Web 2 compatibility. We do that through the S3 compatible endpoint that I mentioned. We have an 80% cost reduction from S3 because we don't charge for egress costs up to 100% of your data. Because everything is on chain, you can trace it and see where it is on the consensus. There's an immutable data ledger if anything gets modified. And ultimately, all of the data is under your control. We use a wallet, any EVM compatible wallet, to secure your data and encrypt it. So you can also provide that to agents so that they can act with that data with full permissions. And we have other ways to get more granular with that permission set too. Here's just a table that goes through more of the features in depth. For example, blob storage is how we store the data, similar to Filecoin. And we also have S3 compatibility, where everything works with that endpoint, like I mentioned. There's the encryption features, there's the savings features, and we also use erasure coding. If you're not familiar with that, it's much more efficient than replication. So when you're uploading data into the Akave network, it does get backed up to Filecoin, but while it's on the Akave network, we start by erasure coding it, meaning that if we store the data in duplicate, some of it can get lost and it'll still be durable and be able to rebuild itself. There's more information here, like the guarantees on availability proofs and, excuse me, I just made my window for myself really big. I don't need to see myself that much. There we go. And there's in-place mutability. So if you do want to append data, you can see all of that history on chain. And the control that I mentioned too allows you to get really granular with it. So you give access to those data wallets to your agents, and you can do things like use smart contracts to make it really granular of how you want to share that data, for how long, who gets access to it, and be able to monetize that. One of the features that we would like to see out of this hackathon is a data marketplace, or more specifically, an agent marketplace. So the way that works at a high level is that when you upload data into Akave, it starts by going through our tool sets and then ultimately gets stored on the network. From there, it gets chunked and erasure coded across the network through our hot storage layer and then backed up to Filecoin. And the data security framework, to get a little bit more granular with it, is that we split it up into chunks. Each chunk is split into little data blocks. Then it gets encrypted with your private key. And that private key is stored client side. We don't ever read it. It just uses it to sign and encrypt the data. Then that encrypted data flows into our network, gets split across the network, and using the Reed-Solomon encryption / erasure coding algorithm, that's how we make sure that the data can be stored with that additional durability without having to do full replication. Once that happens, it's on the network, it's across the nodes, and when it comes back to you, we rebuild it, and then it gets decrypted with that same private key that all stays on your local device. So you have full control over your data at all times. To get into our challenge statements, this is what they are at a high level. You'll find this in the hacker workbook, and the intent around the decentralized hot retrieval layer one here is that we wanted to basically see something that enables efficient retrievals. So this is going to be a balance of cost, speed, and redundancy. It's something that'll help with making it easier for AI to use. We have a tool called the Akave Link, which will be helpful for doing that. I'll show you how to use that during our demo portion. We also wanted to see some more interoperability, things like being able to store across different data sets, move it around, do efficient metadata retrieval, and then also have things like data versioning and lineage tracking, which, as you might know, would just exist by default on chain, but we don't have a great way to visualize that. So that's also something we would love to see if you build that into whatever application you end up building with your AI. An agent marketplace is also something that's great. Akave's focus in general is about making the user experience great. That's why we have all these enterprise type tool sets like the SDK and the AWS compatible endpoint. So everything should be something that is easy to use and is intuitive. And because that's something that we value highly at Akave, that's something that you'll definitely get extra points for when you're submitting your project. For the remainder of the challenge statements, I just said that creative integrations are great as long as it's unique, useful, and fun. Really, you can do anything with it. As long as you're storing with Akave, we want to see you get creative and try all sorts of different things. So I don't want to necessarily be limited by those first three things that I mentioned. Those are just some of the specifics that we would like to see. But as long as it's something cool, we'll definitely take a look. And then to give an example of what this might look like for the AI data layer, it could be an app that uploads a data set. You can train models against that, and then use the self-custody wallet feature. So this is built into our SDK and CLI tools, and basically showing that you can have these data sets, you can train AI data and store it all with your encryption, your private key, all locally, so that you have that security and be able to have those models without exposing them necessarily by throwing them into the cloud where anybody on, say, Amazon could see them. Similarly, with the AI marketplace, having the ability to train and monetize agents, whether you upload that data set and create an agent around it, just make sure that that data is retained by the user through our tool set. And then maybe having like a bidding platform, excuse me, where you can go through the marketplace and bid on the best agent that you see. So basically something like a page where all of the agents are competing against each other. Maybe there's people who want to see the best one, whether it's a trading agent, whether it's a meme agent, whatever it might be, as long as it sort of hits these check marks, it's, again, open-ended, and you can play around with it how you like. And ultimately, going back to this, it could be anything. So whether it's world domination, miscellaneous mayhem, as long as you're storing with Akave, we want to see it. Just make it look good, make it easy to use, and we'll be happy to see what you build. Then for the live demo, wanted to show you how to use some of our basic tools. I'll start with the faucet and go into the docs a little bit. I'll show you a couple of commands through the CLI and through our Akave link, which does curl commands. And then I'll show you what it all looks like on the Explorer. So to start with that, this is our docs. We have the SDK CLI page here. The blockchain integrated one is the one that we prefer you to use because this is where everything goes on chain. The streaming CLI is mostly just for performance, and you can see that'll ultimately be on chain too. But for now, the blockchain integrated one is the one that has the full capacity. We have the installation requirements on here. When I'll be demoing this in a second here, I'll already have most of this set up, but you'll be able to see how to do it. But the first step is to go into our faucet and get some testnet tokens. So you can come in here and just enter a wallet address that doesn't have Akave tokens in it yet. So you can see this one here is one of my wallets that doesn't have it yet. All you have to do is copy paste the wallet address in here, and then you just claim the tokens and it'll send it off to your wallet. There we go. And then when you're using the tooling, all the commands on the blockchain integrated side will be asking for your private key. Again, this all stays local, but if you want to spin up a new wallet just to be on the safe side, you're welcome to do so. We have instructions a little bit further down here on how to make it so that that isn't exposed in the command line. But basically to do this, you just have to go into MetaMask and export it. There's a link here that'll show you how to do that in detail, but basically you can go into the settings and export your private key directly through MetaMask if that's the wallet that you're using, but any EVM compatible wallet will work. Then let me come back in here. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and open my terminal. So in here, you'll see that we have just a test repo that I'm in. I have a couple of test files in here, just a large text file, a couple of photos. And the way that you do this is I have all my commands saved here just to make it a little quicker. But the Akave link is the tool that we have where I'll actually show that first. But this is the tool that we have for going through the to host your data on a containerized API. So this is useful. You can actually expose this to a public URL. I'll just be displaying it on localhost for the purposes of this demo, but you could use ngrok or Cloudflare. There's a couple instructions here on how to do that, but everything here works with a curl command, so you can wrap it in JavaScript or anything else too. And basically, I'll start by just showing the buckets. And you see that I've already created a couple of test buckets with different timestamps and information around them. And I will start here by just throwing in a file that I haven't already uploaded, Badger2, our mascot, the honey badger. So when you do that curl command, it'll just post to that local host and upload the data. It'll take a little bit, but once it's up there, you'll see that you have a root CID. You'll see the size of the file that was uploaded, and you'll get that success message. Then if you go in and check my test bucket, you'll see that that picture has been uploaded. And you can see Badger2 is now in here, created at this timestamp. Similarly, the CLI works the same way. You can see the buckets listed with the key that I have here. So again, I've already exported my private key and stored it in a safe location on my local device. So I have a bunch of test buckets already created. And we'll just create a new one here called Encode bucket. So now we have a new bucket that we can use for the Encode hackathon. And if we want to upload a file again, I'll upload the first Badger photo this time, and it'll be uploaded into the bucket that I just created. And once it does that, in just a second here, you see that it's uploaded successfully. It'll also give you a root CID and the size of the file. And then I'll list it again, just so you see that it's in there. And there it is. Going back into the browser here, the way that we can see that that all happened is to go to our Explorer. The Blockchain Explorer and the testnet faucet are both linked here. I've already got them open though. So I'll pop in here and refresh the page. And you can see that 32 seconds ago, we had a couple contract calls. These are all from the transactions that I just showed live. So if you hop into one of these and you go into the details, you can see that Badger1 was the name of the file uploaded. And so it's all on chain, and you can validate that the data exists there. And similarly, you can find information on creating buckets, the different chunks that were uploaded, and get a little bit more detail through the Explorer that way. So to kind of give you the high level of what the docs I just went through are, these are all listed in the cheat sheet that you should have somewhere. And the developer docs are the basic, the most important resource. This is the page here with information on the blockchain and the streaming API. We also have this Akave links section here under the JS/Docker example code. I already pulled the Docker container and launched it, so that's why I was able to run those curl commands locally. And you can also set it up in JavaScript. There's information here on all of that. You can also get more information on the protocol, the data security stuff that I went over, what erasure coding looks like on our network, as well as information about Akave in general. And then we have our Go SDK. This is the most built out SDK. We also have a Python one that's in development and a Rust one in development. And again, we have an AWS compatible endpoint that's in development, and we're just starting to give out early access to that. That'll probably happen later this week. But again, that one is brand new. So I would recommend sticking with some of these more built out tools like Go or JavaScript. And then Akave Link is the JavaScript version. And then Fillframe, if you guys have done a Filecoin hackathon before, you might be familiar with, is just a way to get a quick UI spun up that'll display some of the data that you have in Akave buckets. So wanted to share that as a useful resource in case anybody wants to use it as a starting point. If you scan any of these QRs, you can get more information on the docs. So that's just a quick link to there. You can follow us on X or join our Telegram. This Telegram is where we'll share the early access to for that endpoint in case you're curious. But that's pretty much it at the high level. And I wanted to save some time at the end in case anybody had any questions. I do see actually a couple questions.
Yes, there's a couple questions in the questions tab. So the first one came at the very start, and it was, both the questions, to be fair, are kind of related, and they're about wallets. So Abbas is asking, do you need to have a wallet connection to use it? And if you're doing a non-EVM based project like Solana, how does that work?
Yeah, so with the streaming CLI, the one that was listed right below the blockchain CLI in our docs there, you don't actually need the wallet connection. That one is a little bit less developed though, so I would recommend sticking with the blockchain one so you can see all your interactions on chain. For Solana, we don't yet support that. It has to be EVM at this point. So anything that's EVM, whether it be MetaMask or any other EVM compatible wallet, will work just fine. You can follow the instructions in the docs for specifically how to export a private key with MetaMask. But as long as you have some wallet that you have custody over, you shouldn't try to use like a non-custodial wallet. You wouldn't even be able to get the private key. But there's not like a direct wallet connection. You basically just use that private key to sign the transactions whenever the blockchain CLI is executed. So again, all that stays locally. So you could store it locally in a file and do the cat command to share it like I did there. So I wasn't exposing my private key. But ultimately, you do need that custodial EVM wallet to interact with our blockchain CLI and with a majority of those SDKs.
Okay, cool. Elijah has actually asked if you can post the Telegram link. So the QR code that you shared, are you able to post the Telegram link in the chat for people to join from this call? Otherwise, we can always put it in the hacker pack if it's not easily available.
Yeah, no problem. I will send that in the chat right now. There we go.
Let me check the questions tab again. So this is a good time. We have some time now before the next workshop. So a good time to, if you're thinking of storing on or building with Akave, now is a good time to ask any of your questions. I'd be interested if anyone is willing to share. I know this can be some best kept secret information, but if anyone is interested in building some of the ideas that Bart mentioned at the start, and if you want any advice on what first steps to take, especially with using Akave, now would be the time to ask. Abbas has followed up saying, so it means I could use a wallet without using wallet connection like Trust wallets or other EVM non-custodial wallets?
Other EVM non-custodial wallets, yeah. You could use those. All you have to do is export the private key and you're able to use it with our CLI. So it doesn't have to be a wallet connection. You don't have to go through the whole process of connect MetaMask and sign and all that stuff. It's just a quick export, and then you can store it on your local device like it's described in our docs. Or if nobody's going to be looking at your terminal, you can just have that command in there and share your private key with yourself. And as long as that doesn't get exposed, it doesn't matter. But again, I have made the mistake of exposing my private key accidentally. So I would recommend doing some extra steps like that to abstract it a little bit. But also definitely an option to just create a new wallet that doesn't have real funds in it. Excuse me. You could just go into the faucet, add the Akave testnet, and get some testnet tokens through there. And then if that wallet does get exposed, it doesn't really matter. It's just our Akave faucet testnet anyway.
I don't know, that could be pretty valuable towards the end of the hackathon when people are needing more testnet tokens. Okay, thank you very much, Bart, for introducing Akave and showing people how to get started. What would you suggest the first thing that people do after leaving this workshop? What would you suggest the first, because you've obviously shown us quite a lot today, what is the first thing that people should check out?
Yeah, I would say go into the docs, make sure that you have Go installed and the other dependencies, install the latest version, make sure you do a quick check to see if all that works, and then get it all set up and configured. And from there, you can start playing around with it, uploading, downloading data, viewing your files, just making sure that you're familiar with all that. And like you saw on my screen, I just keep the quick commands that I want to play with in a little text tab, so you can just copy paste those over and they'll work as long as you have your private key and stuff configured that way. So I think that's a great way to start, going through the docs and just making sure that everything is installed and the dependencies are correct. And if you have any issues with the installation there's definitely a lot of resources that you can find on Go, for example. Might be a little bit tricky to configure the first time, but we link to the docs, I think, directly in our docs.
Nice. Mohammed has actually asked, is Filecoin the recommended way to start locally?
So Filecoin is the UI that the PhilB team has made for hackathons. So it's a great way to kind of get a quick visual of the data that's sitting in your bucket. And specifically, if you go into the repo, I have this linked where we share that resource, but there is a separate branch for Akave. So make sure you start with that branch, and then you can have a way to visualize your data inside of the bucket. And then if you don't want to worry about having to surface that through like a new JavaScript repo, then that's a good starter point. And then you can kind of work around that. But I would say that, that's just the visualization tool. So you're going to want to build definitely on top of that to make sure that things like training data, retrievals, all of that stuff is done. So more so Filecoin is on the front end side. I would say that I would say that Akave Link is a great starter point for that hot retrieval. Because then you can do the JavaScript and curl commands directly through a public endpoint. And I think that's a really powerful way of doing it. So really, I would say that Akave Link is kind of the best place to start for backend, while Filecoin is kind of the best place to start for front end.
Thank you. That's going to be really useful for people getting started. Kwesi has asked, can I pipe data in from a Web 2 API?
What kind of data? Yeah, what do you mean?
Follow-up question. And we'll let Kwesi respond to that, hopefully. Either feel free in chat, Kwesi. F1 data, interesting.
F1 data. Okay. I mean, yeah, you can. So there's some tools that exist for transferring data, like rclone, for example. That one, we haven't tested full compatibility across our SDK yet. That's actually in progress. So something easy like that would be, TBD. However, if you do want to upload data, you can basically run a simple script around the CLIs and do that in bulk if that's just like a one-time thing, or if you want to transfer data on an ongoing basis, doing things like setting up a Akave link with the JavaScript to pull from some source and then upload it in. Both of those require a little bit of development, but as long as you're getting that data in, you can do so. If you're asking whether it can skip like the local part, only if you have like a server or something like that. Ultimately, you do need to do that. That direct data transfer doesn't quite exist. I think our clone, that's exactly something like they support. But again, that's something that we haven't quite tested out. So you'd have to try to play around with a tool like that to figure out how to get everything in there.
So Patrick also has responded and said they'd quite like to use the Twitter API. So I have a feeling that'll be quite difficult because the Twitter API is quite difficult, but as Bart has given you some ways around, maybe you'll be able to find a way.
I'll type it. Our clone is what I'm referring to. And again, this is something that we haven't tested ourselves. So just a useful tool in general. And if you want to play around with it, then potentially you could get that to ingest directly into our SDKs, though I'm not 100% sure how to do that. So I would say in general, the best bet is probably just going to be to get that data that you want to use and then upload it into our SDK or CLI with a separate step. That direct connection, again, that's something that we're working on, but not something that's going to work right out of the box. So one way or another, you're going to have to play around with it. And this being a hackathon, it's totally cool if you just have a data set that you want to get up in there, you upload it once, and then you start playing around with the data there and showing us like a proof of concept that it can be used in a unique and interesting way.
Nice. Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions for Bart while he's here? Otherwise, you can always reach him in the Akave forum, I guess, on the Encode, the AI Blueprints channel on the Discord. If you have any questions that you think about tonight. So Quezzy's asking about office hours. So this will be something we arrange later, but I'm sure, Bart, would you be happy to talk to some of the hackers and help them out with their work?
Yeah, happy to do that. Yeah, just let me know, Rebecca, what makes sense. Luckily, me and Abe, who are going to be supporting this hackathon, are on opposite sides of the world right now. I'm on Pacific time. He's in India. So we should be able to cover
the full time, the full clock. That's great to hear. That'll be really good for those late night questions on one side of the world. Okay, cool. So any last minute questions? Otherwise, don't go anywhere yet, because coming up next, we have a workshop from the Checker Network on how to build a subnet on the Checker Network, and it should be a really beginner-friendly workshop. So if you were considering taking part in the Checker Network bounty, then this is the workshop for you to learn everything. Patrick has joined us, so we'll leave the chat open for one more minute to get any last minute questions. Otherwise, thank you very much, Bart, for joining us. The recording of this workshop will be posted tomorrow. It will be available on the Encode Club YouTube channel, and it will also be linked in the Hacker Pack. Similarly, the recording from yesterday's workshop and the launch event are both available in the Hacker Pack and on our YouTube channel. So if you missed them, or if you want to go back and rewatch any of it, then check them out there. You can even pause and copy whatever is on the screen, which can be an advantage over a live session, but we don't dispute that live sessions are the best for being able to ask and answer questions straight away with no lag. So we'll move on now to thank you, Devlin, for posting the link to the YouTube channel. This is where you can find the recordings. We'll move on now to the second half of the workshop, which is with the Checker Network. So thank you again, Bart, for joining us, and I'm sure we'll see you very soon.
Thanks, Rebecca.